Welcome to SchezzWho, your top spot for politics. My role in bringing you great political content requires your role as a viewer, as a liker of this video, as a sharer of it in your community, and as a subscriber to this channel. Subscribe to SchezzWho because growth is good. Now on to the things which keeps this program going, starting off with Mr. Farley Perkins at the Farley Perkins Agency. If you need some insurance help in Hampton Roads, then hit up 757-271-6655 to help out with insurance needs. Let's say you're in the need for some good Southern food for dinner, then you're going to need to go to Ellen's Home Style and Barbecue Express, which has a location here in Portsmouth, Virginia on Portsmouth Boulevard, and another location across from Regent University on Indian River Road in Virginia Beach. Great food over at Miss Ellen's. Also, don't forget from a good friend, Mr. Seiko Varner. He does Positive Vibes Incorporated, which helps with a lot of monetary issues you might have, like credit fixes or the need for tax resolutions, lending of some money, or debt consolidation. If you need any of that, or if you just simply need a great DJ, because he's a great entertainer, the Mr. Seiko Varner at Positive Vibes Incorporated can be reached at 757-932-0177. Also, don't forget the Black Swan podcast, The Chronicles, run through my awesome, lovely, spectacular wife, Andrea Dixon, Shez Venter, who just released another version of her show this week. Look for that on Spotify. And I'm going to switch to politics based on Chesapeake again tonight. Southern Chesapeake, there exists a Virginia House district of some 66,000 people. It leans a very strong Republican red. The current delegate is 7-term Republican Jay Leftwich. And tonight, SchezzWho brings on Rodney Nickens, a strong Democrat running toward the HD 90 spotlight. I'm going to bring him on right now. Good sir, Mr. Rodney, how are you on this great evening?
Good evening, Conrad. I am doing fantastic, and I want to thank you again for having me on tonight. I'm looking forward to a really great discussion.
Thank you so much for coming on, because it means a lot to have the viewers learn more about yourself as you get ready to go into the heart of election season. So,
yes.
We're both 38 years old. We're both on the young side. But young doesn't necessarily mean inexperienced in my book. So let the viewers know a little bit about your history, about yourself.
Absolutely, Conrad. Thank you so much for asking. I am the son of a nurse and an electrician. I grew up right here in Chesapeake, was a proud product of Chesapeake Public Schools, and I had the opportunity of a lifetime to go away to college in California. I attended the University of California, Merced, where I got my undergrad in history. Then I went on to UCLA and got my master's in African American Studies, and completed my education at the University of California Law, San Francisco, with a specialty in social justice lawyering. And so I have had an extraordinary education, public schools throughout my entire career. And so education is something that is so important to me. It's at the center of this campaign for the House of Delegates. And I am running to fight for our future, to fight for the next generation. As we all can tell, the status quo of today is not working for working people. We need a fighter in the House of Delegates that's going to fight for Chesapeake's future, that's going to fight for Chesapeake's youth and public school students, and that's going to fight to protect our health care, to expand access to housing and home ownership, and also that's going to fight for the people and not the corporate special interests. And so that's why I'm in this fight. That's what the stakes are in this election. And I hope the voters will decide to vote for me in November.
Following up a little bit, can you speak a little bit about your education at UCLA? What did you want to study about? What led you into some political thought there? And what did you do with your burgeoning political thoughts?
Absolutely. So I got my start in politics. I like to say it's a funny looking guy by the name of Barack Obama he caused me to get the political bug. I started out as a community organizer on the campus of UC Merced, registering voters all across Merced County and as well as on my campus. And that led me to internship in Washington, D.C., where I had the opportunity to work at the United States Justice Department in the voting rights section as a Congressional Black Caucus intern. I was actually at the White House on election night when President Obama won and became the first African-American president in the United States history. It was also that same night that California voters passed a measure called Proposition 8, which took away the freedom to marry for gay and lesbian couples in the state. And I say took away because that right had previously been voted on and approved by the legislature and by the courts in California, but it was taken away by the voters through a referendum. And so on that night, I felt conflicted because it was bittersweet that we were making history in the United States in Washington, D.C. by electing President Obama. But at the same time, we were taking away civil rights from a disenfranchised group. And so I felt that I had to get to work. And so I began to study at UCLA marriage equality and public opinion on same-sex marriage and LGBT civil rights in the African-American community, which led me to organizing work in South Los Angeles, knocking on doors to change hearts and minds in the Black community about LGBT civil rights. And so much of my graduate studies was devoted to understanding the intersections between race, gender, income, sexuality, and religiosity, and how those perspectives and those identities shape someone's perspective on civil rights for the LGBT population. And so after my graduate studies, I had the opportunity to take a fellowship at the National Black Justice Coalition, where we actually were advocating with the Congressional Black Caucus to pass the Respect for Marriage Act at the federal level to restore marriage equality rights. And I was at the Supreme Court when the Obergefell v. Hodges decision was brought down, which legalized marriage equality across the United States. And so I have been fighting on these issues since I was a graduate student at UCLA, and it is what informs my advocacy even to this day.
And I like to hear all that because I know going forward and how much that particular decision was in the Supreme Court, how important it is to try to hold on to that progress with individuals like yourself fighting for it, because we know that with the conservative majority that currently exists in the SCOTUS, that it is one arbitrary decision away from going in the other direction. Stare decisis isn't necessarily something that they are vigorously going to uphold to after we saw with the Roe decision. So I'm encouraged to know that individuals like yourself are on that front line fighting to make sure that it maintains itself.
Well, absolutely, Conrad. And one of my top priorities as a delegate when I'm elected in November is to pass a marriage equality constitutional amendment that would strip the marriage equality ban that's currently in the Virginia Constitution from the Constitution and protect the rights of gay and lesbian couples here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. If for some god-awful reason, the United States Supreme Court decides to invalidate the Obergefell decision as they did with Roe. We are living in a time where our children, particularly our daughters, are going to have less rights than their mothers and their grandmothers. And that is completely wrong. And so we have to continue to fight and to push at the local and state level to protect the hard-earned civil rights that our parents and our grandparents have fought for in the past 50 years or so.
Seconded. I want to move on now to a little bit about your Chesapeake background. When did you start seeing that Chesapeake could use a little bit of help from someone like yourself?
Well, you know, it's actually that's actually an interesting question, Conrad, because I am in this race because I recognize that we are going backwards, not only as a city, but as a country. And I feel that all politics are local. And so I jumped in this race because I recognize that it was time for a new generation of leadership. If you look around the country, Our leaders do not reflect the diversity of the United States. They're not in touch with the issues that are impacting working people, and working people's perspectives are not heard in the halls of power. Currently, corporate interests like Dominion and Virginia Natural Gas have an outsized influence in our politics, not only at the state level, but even locally down to our city council. For example, my opponent is fully funded to the tune of $200,000 by Dominion Energy. Why is this a problem, you might ask? Well, when our politicians take unlimited amounts of cash from special interests, particularly utility companies that are jacking up our energy costs and jacking up our energy bills, who does that place in the front of their perspectives when they're deciding on how to vote for legislation, how to make themselves available to the needs of their constituents? Well, I can tell you how. It causes them to serve their donors and not the people. My opponent has a history of never conducting town halls, is rarely seen in the community. I have traveled all across this district, and I can tell you, I've only seen him once. And everyone I speak to on the campaign trail doesn't even know who he is. And so I've looked at his voting record. He has voted against the environment. He has voted against education and our kids, and he has voted against the safety of our communities. And we deserve better. And that's why I'm in this fight.
And that shows you how distant politics could be from the people, even though in real terms, real policy, it doesn't leave them. But how close people are to their actual representatives can get a distance. You've been knocking on doors, as you just said. Some people don't even know who Jay Leftwich is, and they probably have voted for him because they only show up on that day. They don't take it day to day, week to week, month to month, as many probably should, because that is what lets us know where we need to fix the things in our communities, starting with the fact that you're running to fight for all the people, as you say, no matter the zip code or the background. And that begins with education. So what would you like to do with education?
Well, like I said, I am the proud product of public schools, and Chesapeake has some of the best public schools in the Hampton Roads region. But that didn't happen by accident. That happened because of intentional investments in high quality facilities, investments in teacher pay and teacher retention, investments in school supplies and facilities. And so we need to double down on those investments to ensure that every child in Chesapeake, regardless of where your zip code is or regardless of what your parents did, has access to a world-class quality public education. And so that's what I'm fighting for: increasing teacher pay, reducing class sizes in impacted schools in underserved communities, expanding access to high quality facilities and high quality curriculum and training that will prepare our students for the 21st century economy that they're going to find themselves in once they graduate from high school. And that doesn't happen without building a coalition with teachers, with parents and students, and actually listening to the needs of students and teachers. And so that's the approach that I'm going to take. I'm excited to be in conversation with numerous education associations. I'm a proud alum of Oscar Smith High School. And so that's
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. So that's what I'm going to fight for.
And they also won in quite a few state championships in football over in Oscar Smith, but we don't have to touch on that just yet.
The mighty Tigers, the mighty Tigers.
How does a Delegate Nickens pursue improvements in health care in Virginia?
Well, Conrad, unfortunately, this administration in Washington is bent on cutting funding to healthcare, cutting funding for Medicaid and Medicare, cutting funding to SNAP, which is our Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, cutting resources to programs that we depend on every day here in Chesapeake. And so we have to be the last stop as the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have to continue to invest in expanding access to Medicaid and Medicare. We have to continue to invest in expanding access to high quality healthcare in rural communities and rural clinics. in rural hospitals. And we have to continue to bring down the cost of prescription drugs so that our communities can access life-saving medication that will enable them to have a dignified life. And so that's what Delegate Nickens will fight for. And that's what I hope will be the approach that we will take once we expand the Democratic majority and elect a Democratic trifecta in November.
Yeah, because that trifecta is going to have to be from the top down,
Yes,
all the
sir.
way through the state house as well. So also in the governor's mansion. Now, you're interested in safe neighborhoods. I live in Portsmouth on a street where a mass shooting occurred in 2024. 2 died there, not a football throw away from my house. I'm from Virginia Beach, which has seen its share of mass shootings, including one a week away from the Chesapeake mass shooting at Holly Cove. And we don't forget the Walmart shooting either. So as we think about safe neighborhoods, we think of Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, all of Hampton Roads. How do we get them with the Delegate Nickens?
Well, unfortunately, Conrad, gun violence is a national epidemic, and we have to do more to reduce the access to unregistered guns to folks who don't need them and shouldn't have them in the first place. We can all agree on common sense gun reforms that keep dangerous weapons of war out of our streets and out of the hands of folks who have no business using them. However, we can't do that when we have politicians who are bought and paid for by the gun lobby, like my opponent, for example, who gets A ratings from the NRA and the Virginia equivalent, but then again fails to show up for our kids and gets F ratings from the education associations here in Virginia. And so we have to get serious about passing meaningful common sense reforms to our current gun laws. We have to get serious about investing in public safety solutions that work. We have to get serious about investing in prevention and community-oriented solutions that reduce gun violence. And that is how we make our community safe, and also how we create opportunities that keep our kids from going down the path of crime.
And I will follow up in a second with more on your thoughts on what opportunities are going to mean. But I want to take this time right about here to share the screen with your own webpage there, good sir. So viewers could learn more about yourself going forward. And it's under the designation of Rodney 4, the number 4, Virginia.com. And I have it on the /home part of that webpage. Good to know for that. And of course, I also want to take this moment to encourage the viewers to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, so on and so forth. And go ahead and put a question right there so I can ask it to the candidate himself while he is here. I'll leave that up there that second so I could go on to the next question, which follows up on opportunity, because I know when I was looking at your website earlier, you have a comment about a real shot at success for people. And what does that mean for you?
Well, I think we are experiencing economic changes and shifts in our society with the proliferation of technology and artificial intelligence that we really haven't seen, I would say, since the Industrial Revolution. And that is going to, result in continued reduction in job loss of jobs. And so we have to begin to think about how we prepare our young people for a new economy, a 21st century economy, jobs in renewable energy, technology, and innovation, and how we modernize government to make it more accessible and more connected to the people. And I think we have an opportunity to do that through the House of Delegates in terms of the legislation that we sponsor to help folks to get new skills, to get trained for these new jobs, to put forward good paying jobs that actually pay a living wage that folks can actually start a family, buy a home, have kids on, raise the next generation on. And so we have to do that work to put Virginians first here in the Commonwealth. And so that is what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy that would afford folks like myself, young folks who are entrepreneurial, and self-starters and self-motivated to start a small business, to incentivize more small business startups here in the city of Chesapeake. Those are some of the ideas that I hope to bring to Richmond as your next delegate.
Speaking of ideas, I notice you have an idea that housing is a human right. And I'm glad to hear a delegate candidate say that, to put it into the ether, running on it. I've heard about policies like Housing First over in Finland, which provides housing to the homeless and then provides further support services for them. How would you like to tackle housing in Virginia?
Well, Conrad, I've worked in housing justice for almost a decade now, and it's a national crisis. In the richest nation on the planet, we have some of the highest numbers of homeless folks who are unhoused, folks who are what we call cost burdened on their rent, spending more than a third of their income on their rent here in this country. And it is really a shame. It is really a crying shame. And from my conversations on the campaign trail, I'm hearing of families going to the food bank every week because they can't afford groceries and they can't make ends meet. And so we have to do better. We have to create an economy where folks can afford the rent, where folks can afford to buy a home. It shouldn't be controversial to say that Virginians shouldn't have to work 3 jobs to afford a 1-bedroom apartment. That shouldn't be controversial. And so, yes, I believe that housing is a human right. I believe that every person deserves a safe and affordable place to call home. I believe that if we are truly going to be a commonwealth where every family can thrive, then we have to bring down the cost of housing. We have to create more housing. We have to create diverse types of housing. For example, accessory dwelling units, converting garages to apartments, creating duplexes, creating triplexes, quadplexes. This is already taking place in Northern Virginia. And so Hampton Roads has got to do a much better job at addressing our current housing crisis. And right here in Chesapeake, we have a lot of work to do as well. For too long, we have prioritized single family development to the detriment of multifamily housing. For too long, we have prioritized affordable housing in certain neighborhoods and luxury housing and suburban sprawl in others. And so we have to get a comprehensive approach to addressing the housing crisis. And that starts with the production of more affordable, diverse types of housing, preventing folks from falling into homelessness through rental assistance programs and more funding for homelessness prevention and preservation, preserving and acquiring and rehabilitating more homes to ensure that they are permanently affordable. And that can all happen at the state level as well.
And we also know that right about now, Medicaid is taking a big hit with the big BS bill. What would you like to do on healthcare and drug prices in this state as a position as a delegate?
Well, I think we need to definitely continue to fight back against the ugly, un-American, unnecessary, unwelcome bill that has resulted in the greatest transfer of wealth to the 1% in probably the history of the United States. This bill is going to have a disastrous effect on Virginians. I believe certain stats are showing that 300,000 Virginians could lose health care in the next 10 years. And many of them are in Chesapeake and many of them are veterans. And so we have got to do better. And so one of the things that I am prioritizing is fighting the cuts against Medicaid by doubling down here in Virginia and expanding access to Medicaid, especially for seniors, folks with disabilities, and folks with low incomes. We have got to protect our hospitals, particularly our rural hospitals, by investing in making investments, smart investments to ensure that they keep their doors open. And you're right, the cost of prescription drugs is still too high, particularly insulin. My mother suffers from diabetes, and I know so many other families across Chesapeake do as well. And so we have to bring down the cost of prescription drugs and work, with pharmaceutical companies where we can to lower those costs. But we have got to begin thinking creatively about some different regulations that we could put forward to help bring down the cost. And then also, one of the things that I think we need to think about expanding access to is medicinal marijuana. I think in other cities, the medicinal cannabis industry is beginning to take off. And I feel that here in Chesapeake, we're falling behind the eight ball here. And so that's something that I would like to explore in addition to a number of other measures that will help to increase the health and wellness of our community. And I can't not also mention making more investments in mental health, because right now we are seeing an epidemic of mental illness impacting our communities, and especially here in Chesapeake.
Now, my last time running for a city council over in Virginia Beach way back in 2020, I ran on a rapid bus transit system being brought into the area in refurbishing HRT. I hear you'd like to do better with transportation publicly as well. So I'm curious how you would like to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have got to get people out of their cars. We have got to expand access to bus rapid transit here in Hampton Roads and across the region, but especially here in Chesapeake, where we have so many high resource areas. I think, for example, there are a number of corridors in my district, for example, Cedar Road, Battlefield Boulevard, Greenbrier Parkway, that could be modernized with expanded sidewalks for biking and running. We should also explore other modes of transportation. For example, in the city of Norfolk, they have the Lime system, which offers scooters and bikes for rent. That's something that we should be looking towards and thinking about how we can get folks out of their cars and slow down traffic so we can reduce fatalities and car accidents and also address congestion in our communities. And so we have got to think about our infrastructure and modernizing it and improving it and making our communities more connected and more mobile.
I really like the sound of that.
Thank you.
Now, speaking of getting people out of their cars, I lost my car in 2016 on the night of Hurricane Matthew. It got flooded out. And then this summer, as we've seen in Chesapeake, Portsmouth here, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, has been rife with flash flooding from random thunderstorms. And I have a feeling you would like to tackle climate change and not just ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. Do I have that right?
You absolutely have that right. And I'm proud to be endorsed by organizations like Clean Virginia and Virginians for Change, because unlike my opponent and folks on the other side, I believe in science. I believe that climate change is real, and we're seeing it with the proliferation of, extreme weather conditions, with increased hurricanes and thunderstorms and flash floods. Hampton Roads is actually one of the most, I would say, at risk for sea level rise because of our position on the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay. And so we have got to get on top of this, or we may find ourselves underwater. And so, yes, we must, invest in renewable energy and make that transition away from fossil fuels. We have to reduce carbon emissions, which is why I think it's so critical that we get folks out of their cars and on buses and trains. I love taking the Amtrak up to Richmond and DC, and I think we have to expand and expand access and frequency to those types of alternative modes of transportation. But I think also we have to address climate change, and that means investing in wind and solar energy and alternative sources of renewable energy.
And that also needs to be more than just, and even though you're running for the state role of it, but the state role of addressing climate change is still somewhat limited. This is something that we got to do as a nation and encourage many other nations to be doing it too. And the nation on down's got to be funding it. So if there's great renewable ideas that could be done here in Virginia, say offshore, solar farms, encouraging things like that the federal government's got to be a partner. It can't be adversarial. And as much as you or I would like the idea of it, and we would tell someone like the hypothetical you starting in January when you get sworn in as a delegate, you should also then turn around and advocate toward the federal representatives. And here it'd be Bobby Scott. In your area, it'd be Jen Kiggins. Or going into an election year, advocate them because you know that they got to bring home the bacon of federal funding to support that. Because if it dries up, that's going to kill a lot of jobs, and it's going to really get us out of a productive way to help the climate going forward. So I have a feeling you would also want to be such an advocate in your position.
Absolutely. And you're right. I think one of the most disastrous things that this administration has done has been its policies on the climate and on environmental protection. The gutting of the Environmental Protection Agency, the passage of executive orders that undo all of the environmental protection work of the Biden administration. I mean, this administration is on a rampage to destroy our climate, to destroy our people, and to destroy all of the hard-won civil rights that we have fought for the last 50 years or so. And so you're right, we will have to fight. And I'm so excited and proud of the 23 attorneys generals in Democratic states across the country that are pushing back against this administration and their disastrous policies, their disastrous executive orders. And that's why we got to elect Jay Jones, because Jay Jones is going to fight against this administration's environmental policies and is going to join that delegation of attorneys general that are standing up to this administration and their war on the climate.
I second a lot of that. I second the emotion, as they used to say on that. Now, I've exhausted a bit of the political policy questions I've had for you regarding your campaign, your ideas. But nonetheless, I'm still curious. Are there other cool, important ideas that we haven't touched on yet that you would like to mention that you support?
Well, I think we have to expand the Democratic majority. And so I'm excited to support our, outstanding ticket here in Chesapeake, but we have 100 delegates running all across the Commonwealth for the House of Delegates, Democrats across our state, and it's an exciting, dynamic group of millennials and Gen Z and Gen X, as well as a few boomers. But we are pushing forward a new generation of leadership, and that's what's exciting me and animating me in this contest. We have got to expand access to voting. We got to increase some of our voter registration numbers here in Chesapeake. Currently, we are lagging behind our colleagues in Northern Virginia. And so that's something that's really animating me. And of course, we have a voting rights constitutional amendment that we're going to be putting forward if we do expand our majority, the Democrats in the House. And so I'm very excited to support that. Felon disenfranchisement is something that is really important to me as well. And so we have got to restore the rights of folks who have done their time. We have to bring them back into the fold. And we have.
Would you support Ban the Box?
I would absolutely support Ban the Box, because we have got to, ensure that folks feel like they are a part of our society. And if we, by denying them the franchise and the right to vote, that essentially makes them feel as if they're less of a person and less of a citizen of this country. And that, I believe, is wrong.
And especially because you have such a consideration for voting rights and wanted to support it at the state level, make sure it's strong in the entire state.
Absolutely.
I can't help but mention, because I recently had on Jennifer Navarella, who is running in Chesapeake for, I believe, the commissioner of the revenue seat this year, and she ran for city council in Chesapeake last year. And as you know, I hail from Virginia Beach but live in Portsmouth, so I know the differences between a district voting system in a city and an at-large voting system in a city. I came from the city that had a federal judge rule on it and say that it was against the Voting Rights Act because of how it was designed. And Virginia had to switch to 10-1, and it's still up in the air. And I remember last year going to a Chesapeake forum. They were asked about district voting in Chesapeake, and I imagine versus what it is currently in at-large, which we have here in Portsmouth as well, an at-large system. That is a good way to support voting enfranchisement, is district elections systems, even on a municipal level. I'm curious if you would also like to see that in Chesapeake.
Absolutely. Currently the Republicans have the majority on our city council, and that that discussion did come up, and they shut it completely down. And so we absolutely need to move in the direction of district voting so that citizens have a say in their representatives, and that the representatives come from the communities that they seek to serve. But we have to vote, and we have to take back the majority on the council and the school board in 2026.
Now, can you let the viewers know more about what you like about Chesapeake? You're part of Chesapeake. What are your favorite organizations, businesses, hangouts? So, what is the stuff you really want to shout out about your neighborhood and your community?
Well, I mean, Chesapeake is home. I was born and raised here, and it's where I hope to start a family. It's a beautiful community. We're one of the most diverse suburbs in Virginia. We're also the second largest city in the Commonwealth, and we're growing. And every day we're becoming more dynamic and diverse. And there's new restaurants and businesses popping up, and there's all kinds of new activities going on and things to do. Me myself, I am a member of a number of organizations. For example, I sit on the board of Equality Virginia and Pride in the Peak, and we recently just celebrated Pride Month in June, and so I was all over the Hampton Roads area celebrating Pride. And I'm also a member of the NACP here, and the New Chesapeake Men for Progress, and the Chesapeake Democratic Committee. And so, I definitely am busy with campaigning and public service in the moment. But when I'm not on the campaign trail, I'm enjoying the parks, enjoying the waterways, enjoying our beautiful community centers and our beautiful fitness facilities. And we just have the best of both worlds. It's a wonderful place to grow up, and it's a wonderful place to raise a family. And there's always fun things going on, whether it's in Greenbrier, Great Bridge, or City Park, or Oak Grove Lake Park. And so I enjoy those types of activities, and I enjoy being out and about and hanging out with folks in the community.
Now it comes down to sort of the last question. The question is putting it to you, treating me as if I'm a random person you see mowing his grass in Chesapeake, and you are meeting me for the first time, and I don't know about yourself, and I don't know about Jay, and you're pitching me why to vote for Rodney Nickens Jr. for delegates in Chesapeake. Let us know.
Well, I would just say that I am a son of Chesapeake, and I love this city. I love people here, and I believe that we deserve better. We deserve a delegate that listens. We deserve a delegate that shows up. We deserve a delegate that's going to fight for working people and working families, and not big corporations. And so that's why I'm in this race. I want to continue to see Chesapeake be one of the best cities in Virginia, and arguably in the country. And in order to do that, we have to make smart investments. We have to put the interests of the people first, and not the politicians and the special interests. And we got to, get the role of money out of politics. And so I'm going to put forward, clean government, good governance measures, and fight for a government that's transparent and accountable and accessible to the people. So hopefully I will earn your support.
Sounds like a good pitch to me. Now, I want to thank you, Mr. Rodney, for coming on this SchezzWho tonight. But before we go, give us everything about you that we could subscribe to, like, follow, to learn more about you, perhaps a link to where we might donate if we wanted to donate your direction. And as you do that, I will put again your website up on the screen.
Yes, if you would like to learn more about me and my campaign, please go to www.rodney4virginia.com. I am also active on social media. I believe Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, TikTok. I also have a Substack and my own podcast, the Rodney Kendall Podcast, where I do deep dives on all things politics to pop culture. And so please check me out, like and subscribe, and drop me a comment.
Great stuff. And I wish you a very fun election season. And I would definitely like to see what you might be able to do as a leader in Richmond. And I hope you have a great night, good sir. Thank you again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Conrad. It's been a pleasure. And thanks, everybody, for listening.
And I want to thank all the viewers tonight. This has been another great SchezzWho. Viewers, I'd like you to hit the like on this video, share it to your Chesapeake friends, and get them and yourself to subscribe to the channel. I'll bring you more great political content. You guys take care.